coming in. Of course, I would have also liked you to come in for the last symposium, but for whatever your time constraints and everything. So thank you very much.
No. I'm a Vela lawyer. Don't worry.
No.
So,
but yeah.
In fact, Vikram, yeah. See, I wish my day was 48 hours. It doesn't happen. That's the whole problem. All of us are running against time. And my most common refrain is better to wear out than to rust out.
So you were wearing out well.
That's life,
But JP, what you have to do is you'll have to tell us about yourself. And why a lot about yourself is because I've been telling everyone that heart, soul, spirituality aspect of it comes in at a very early age, and the value systems you are brought up in, all those, everything is important. So don't leave anything out, and everything that will connect to this, so that when we go forward, we'll know where JP is coming from, all those connections.
Vikram, I am a man of few words, so jada mujhe grill mat karna. I mean, I remember those days when I was the vice president, and I would be called on TV and I wouldn't go. So, I mean, even Barkha Dutt called me and I said, "Dekho, maine ka problem ye hai. You people will put words in my mouth and then play it 24/7. And jo meri thodi bahut wakalat hai na, wo bhi khatam ho jayegi."
No one's going to put any words. Aapki show hai. You do exactly what you want. But
so knowing that, I mean, I usually avoid all kinds of, I do work in the sense like we've been working in this field for a long time now. And even Abhi, right tomorrow, I'm going to one of the colleges, universities in Gurgaon. So, but then, I don't come onto the social media. I'm not going around parading what I'm doing. I always tell even people who work with me, let your work speak for yourself.
But JB, I'll tell you, the thing is that people have to see mediators. First of all, they have to put a face to a mediator. So for me, who I want people to see as mediators is very important. So that's why it's important to have you there. It's about them connecting to the person, because it is for me, it's still, I mean, you've been part of the court system and everything, but for me, mediation is still a new thing in the country. So when we put it out, let's put it out properly, the right people out there, because there are lots of things which are connected to heart, soul, spirituality. Of course, we're discussing today, so obviously that's an important thing, and everyone doesn't come with all that. So that's why it's important to have you there.
I don't know. I mean, you have experts. I heard Uma. I heard Prerna. I heard Sriram. I mean, these are experts you have. Like, मैं तो ठीक है यार, थोड़ा बहुत काम कर रहा हूँ. Like, trying to, as I told you, touch as many lives I can as we move along the spectrum. And God knows when that whole thing is going to come to an end. And especially COVID has told us we don't know about tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's sad that we lost so many people in this April, the second wave.
I know.
So that just shows, so do whatever you can and move on. All of us know, like, that's the end which is going to come. It's ephemeral, but fine. We move on.
No, but the JP, the person is someone we really have to know as much as we can about you, the person. Then, of course, like I said, the connection to all this aspect today, like it's heart, soul, spirituality. So a little bit about yourself. I mean, growing up, anything, as much as you want to. I mean, or nothing.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So whatever you want to tell us about yourself. Yeah, please.
Vikram, I grew up, I was born in Lucknow, and grew up in a small town in Bihar, that was Dhanbad, where I did my schooling from Renewable School, Digwadi. One of the best schools in that area. So I feel, some people flower late, but with me, maybe like my schooling was the best days. I got double promotions. I stood first. And that was a great time that I had during that period, and played national basketball. Basically, it was sports plus education. It was not something that, I was not a bookish kind of a person. People who, actually will associate a person who comes first in class, like, would be a person always 24/7 working on his studies. No, I didn't. And so therefore, I was basically an all-rounder in that sense. Loved my sports, and in fact started golf late. It was because I thought probably it was first you need to specialize in whatever avocation or profession that you do before you get into any kind of a sport. And sport which is so preoccupying. They call it a jealous mistress. So I then started golf a little late, was of course moved up to 6 handicap, and now I'm back to 12.
Wow.
And so there, and I asked this person who initiated me into the game that what was so special that I moved up so fast. He says, because you've been a sports person, so you know how to apply yourself. So sports, I always feel, sports is something which teaches you not to be selfish, how to share. My basketball days were about sharing. Even if I had a chance to shoot, I would still give it to a person who was free and who could score with certainty. So that's why the team games teach you that. And then again, when the topic that we'll be talking about, sharing, is part of spirituality. Something serving humanity, that's spirituality for me. Doing something good, that's spirituality for me. So therefore, that's been my childhood. That's how it was spent. Never thought that I will come into law because I had nobody in law. And the best part about the joke was, my mama was in railways, and I went to see him at the Lucknow station yard. And he introduced me to one of his colleagues who was a Hasya Kavi on Lucknow TV. So I was introduced as a lawyer practicing in Delhi, and he said, my nephew is a lawyer, and he looked me up and down and says, "Tum kahin se vakil to lagte nahi ho." So I said, "Why?" He said, "Because lawyers are meant to be sharks. That's the image of lawyers. Tum kahan se vakil ban gaye?" Maine kaha, "Ji, pata nahi. I don't know. Part of my journey got me to become a lawyer." So I was never actually destined to be a lawyer. And most of I remember people who joined law was basically either to get into services because it was a good paper to score in. And that's how the whole journey began. And now, it's been 41 years I've been at the bar.
So you came with a mediator mindset is what we will look at as we go along.
Yes, because this has been part of me. Service, doing service. I was, as I told you, Dunobli School was part of the Christian ethos. We had American padres who ran that school. And so that was basically things that were inculcated into you, the sense of service. And that's how I got into elections business. I was not supposed to be a politician, and I don't believe in the kind of politics that we are today we see. But it was just because people said, strikes would happen and everyone would tell me, "JP, why don't you contest?" And I would tell them, "Mere paas, I am not meant to be a politician." And so they said, "No, we'll help you." And when it came to fighting elections, almost all my friends disappeared. They said, "Look, don't bring us out. We'll vote for you, but don't bring us out." Because it's so embarrassing. I know the other guy also who's standing against you. And that's how, but then once I got into it, it was, in fact, the first mediation center that was set up in Delhi was broken down at the Tisazai district courts. And then the Chief Justice, Justice Kaju, wanted to start the center in the High Court. And we were told that he needs the bar's help. And I was vice president then. And our president then told him that the only reason I will agree that the bar can support this movement is in case you let the bar run it. Don't make it a haven for retirement of the judges. And that's where our journey began. We started mediation. We got mediation training done. We hid and went from the bar because, as I told you, the bar was up in arms. Because lawyers perceived that in case if mediation movement takes off, then whatever work that we have would finish. They perceived ADR as alarming drop in revenue. And but then that's history. Today, whenever we announce that we want to take one mediation course, we do a residential program. I have 400 applications. And we have to select only 30 or 40 people who would do the mediation training. And it becomes so difficult. Everyone wants to be a mediator today. Of course, for some, it is just an avocation. For some, it is passion. For us who got into it, who still do pro bono work, feel that we were meant to do this, in the sense like, as I told you, we go around we started peer mediation in school. We do training for law students and lawyers, plus others, judges, even judicial officers. We do sensitization program in mediation. So the idea was that we found that this was something we give back to the system, what the system has given us, because it changed our whole outlook about what life is, how litigation should be seen, how conflict resolution should be seen. And so therefore, I'm in it. And here I am, talking to you on this.
No, but I'll tell you interestingly what you said about politics. I was talking to as part of the symposium, Sarah, she's based in Australia. So she works with the indigenous communities. So what we were discussing in that was that the leaders their leaders actually come with that mediator mindset. They have that. And that's the way leaders are supposed to be. But of course, the way, politics, and you mentioned politics, it has gone into a certain direction. We have to bring it back, and people like you have to be leaders. Politics word is a bad word, so we won't use the word politics. We'll say we need leaders like you, because that mindset is required for that.
Vikram, I always tell my senior, when he would say that don't give up, and I would say, why me? Why don't others come and join? And and I've been in it for a number of years now, and I always tell, like, even the High Court mediation committee, I tell them, look, let me go. And every time the chairperson would come and say, mere time pe nahi, when the next person comes, you can go there. And I've continued as part of the overseeing committee. So, yes, good people should come forward. But unfortunately, as you said, it's become a dirty word. And nobody, with a little bit of self-respect. I can't tell you the things that I went through, to reach this office. But yes, people are reluctant to join politics.
So that's the whole movement that I'm trying to do. It'll take its time, but I'm on that path, that right down to the village level, identify those people with the mediator mindset. So the community should bring them into what we today call politics. I don't even want to use, like I said, didn't want to use that word, but bring them into that. And then I feel we'll see a change. Be it start from the grassroots level, but as we go along, it is all communities only. Some are smaller village communities, then become maybe district communities and state and nation. So it starts from there.
Maybe start at the taluka level. No,
exactly. So, and these people are all there. I was talking to Mr. Panchu also before they're all there. We just have to value them. I think that's the only thing that has happened. The value system of society changed. So you moved away. And that's why this heart, soul, spirituality aspect, that these are important elements. We must value them. So that's how the whole thing connects with in that sense. That's the idea. So you'll have to bring that part out of it. But of course, to understand, from your end, what do you think is spirituality? The soul part of it, the heart part of it. And what I try to do is connect it to 4 things: the dispute, the mediator, the parties, and the process. So I will be out of the picture. You can take us through as much, and then I'll come in whenever you want me to come in.
Thank you. Vikram, when I told a colleague that I am going to talk about heart, soul, and spirituality in mediation, she queried whether it was meditation or mediation I was referring to. See, spirituality or spiritual practices are not necessarily linked to faith. Getting in touch with yourself is the core principle of spirituality. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, German writer and statesman, said, "Know thyself. If I knew myself, I would run away." Being spiritual can mean different things to different people. Yoga, fasting, chanting, prayer are traditionally referred to as spiritual practices. Gardening, painting, poetry writing, martial arts, love, music, community service, trekking, mountaineering are also considered spiritual practices. So far as I'm concerned, they elevate you to the form where you are in harmony with yourself. Ever trek down into the mountains, you would realize yourself. I mean, there are people who love sea, but I'm the mountain guy. I mean, once you're in the mountains, you are really in one with nature. See, Vikram, you play golf, so do I. What about golf? The inner game of golf. When I started playing golf, I was told that it is played between the 2 years. Now I realize it is a mind game. Timothy Galway's books mention strategies how to, I quote, defeat your mental demons and find clarity under pressure. And this may apply to any sport. And when you told me to talk about this subject, so I looked up some articles. I read David Hoffman and Richard Goldman. In the article, they write, mediation is a spiritual practice. They say, I quote, we believe that serving as mediators is one of our primary forms of spiritual practice. Authenticity and being fully present with the parties are not only effective as dispute resolution strategies, they also create a model for the parties. By opening their heart and souls to the parties, mediators may activate similar openness in return. Well, that's the basic hallway of trust. When you open up, the parties open up with you, because otherwise they don't know you. Where's the question of trust? They trust their lawyers. But it's the way you treat the process, how the process treats them. If once the process treats them fairly, they build trust in you. Now, we have heard of terms like performative negotiation, distributive negotiation, integrative negotiation, and transformative negotiation. Now, these are not just terms in the process. The parties, when they appear for mediation and they part from the mediation table, during this long, arduous journey, they access deeper resources that can, actually promote transformational experience. When the parties appear, that's been my, experience. The heat of their anger towards each other fills their minds, their hearts, and the room. By being compassionate and non-judgmental, we withstand the fire of conflict and initiate the process of healing without being consumed. Now, that's what the metal a mediator is made of. At the Delhi High Court Mediation Center, we have a meditation room, though it's rarely used. We have heard from a number of mediators that they prepare for the session with a brief period of focused meditation to clear their minds. You come out of the court, you're already in an adversarial mindset, and imagine to wear a different hat to sit as a mediator. In the book, Getting to Yes with Yourself and Other Worthy Opponents, William Ury says, first put yourself in your shoes. And then he goes on to say, putting yourself in your shoes may sound odd at first, because after all, are you not already in your shoes? And what we have learned during our trainings, that most important skill of a mediator is empathy. To be able to put yourself into the other person's shoes. Now, by what he says, by putting yourself in your shoes, you listen to yourself. And then that can reveal what we really want. At the same time, it can clear our mind so that we can have a mental and emotional space to be able to listen to the other person and understand what he or she really wants. In one of the videos that I was hearing, he talks about two friends walking in a park. And so one friend tells the other, I don't understand my son. He just doesn't listen to me. So the friend queries, I thought to understand someone, you need to listen to them. And that's the basic difference. How many of us, regularly listen to ourselves with empathy and understanding? When we come to mediators, mediator must use a highly developed capacity of inner listening to identify their own mental and emotional state in order to listen actively to the disputants in conflict and to choose appropriate intervention in order to support disputants' self-determination. Unfortunately, sometimes our questioning skills lead the process to impasse. So what is the right intervention? I must first listen to my inner self. See, while telling their stories, it helps parties to listen to themselves. No, they also get to listen. You see, when I say something, I'm also listening to myself. For the first time, to understand themselves in relation to their own experience, and the most importantly, to be heard. By listening, we validate them, their life experiences. They are not just stories. We acknowledge them as people. We acknowledge their pain and their experiences as real. But why is this necessary? The most important part of listening is to make human connection. When we make the human connection, the problem usually solves itself. Now, how do we do it? See, there are two levels of listening. I was reading a book, and it beautifully explains. See, while listening to others, the first level, you're always distracted by all echoes in your own mind, which we call mind chatter. You may be thinking, you're listening. I'm listening to the parties, and at the same time, what is going on in my mind? I have an important meeting in an hour. What's for lunch? Must remember to pay for the credit card. Today is the last day. What's new in the market? Are the children back from school? Your mind wanders. So what do you do in such a situation at level 1? You want to solve parties' issues and get over it as quickly as possible from your own experiences. Possibility of collaborative solution vanishes. You listen only to your thoughts, analyze and about your own opinions about what is best for the parties. And you thrust your own solution on the parties. Our attention is on our predetermined solution to the problem. As a lawyer's mindset, when a party comes to you, you already start. When they start their narration, you're already deciding what is to be done, whether they have a case, whether they don't have a case, because from your own experiences, you're trying to resolve that dispute. It's parties' dispute. Let them find a way out. So level 1 thinking does this. Listening, sorry. When we level 2 listening is at this level, there is sharp focus on the other person. There is much deal of attention on the other person and not much awareness of the outside world. Now, let me explain this to you with an example. Imagine, all of us must have gone through this, our dating period. 2 lovers in a restaurant. See, you see there in their posture, both are leaning forward and looking intently at each other. They are not aware of the waiter has come. He's come with a menu card. What is the ambience of the place around? They are so lost in each other that they do not actually hear anything outside. Now, that's the kind of level of listening that you need to inculcate if you have to become a wise and a good mediator. At this level, you listen for the words, expressions, emotions. You notice what is said and how it is said. You notice what is not said. You see the smiles and tears in the voice. You listen to what they value. It is a level of empathy, clarification, and collaboration. Now, this is the human connection. The link is complete. So, listening, half the problem, if you have properly listened to the person, his problem will dissolve. But unfortunately, we do level 1 listening. We actually never get to level 2 listening. Now, even if we are challenged or provoked by the parties, now part of the process, the experience is one we can work with to become better mediators. And dare we say, better people. We've learned, I call the court annex mediation centers as laboratories. Where will you get, all of us today must have done more than 600, 700 mediations. From where do you get this lab to work on? And we've been improving, as I just now told you, we've been improving day by day, not just as mediators, but as people, as human beings. Who knew when we made the decision to become mediators that our vocation would provide such an inviting path towards personal growth and spiritual connection? The mediator creates time and space for all sides to really hear and understand one another. They create more space for emotions to be expressed through the process to help support emotional healing. This is the most important part in mediation. Which court judgment or which matter in court, or a judge hears about the emotional aspect of the dispute. And let me tell you, in dispute resolution, or when we're talking about mediation, solution does happen. But, the solution is not the primary goal of dispute resolution. And when we talk of healing, I will always remember the words of Professor James Holbrook of University of Utah, who said, JP, the difference between American mediators and the Indian mediators was that while the former settle disputes, the latter heal disputes. See, the satisfaction of mediation does not depend entirely or even primarily on the result. The wise mediator is not collecting a string of successes. The mediator is helping others to find their own successes. He knows that the reward for doing work arises naturally out of the work itself. It's the work that you do. It's not, if you have conducted a session well, that's the reward for you. Not ultimately whether the parties settle or don't settle the dispute. That's not important. As mediators, we experience spiritual peace when we serve others. Doing something that will benefit someone without getting something back. See, for example, doing pro bono work or even legal aid can be very enriching to get in touch with the spiritual selves. Now, you see, parties in conflict go to mediators to be healed, to be made whole, and to regain control of their lives. That's the most important part why they come to you. That's what I call transformation. And, you would have read, a number of you people would have read about this post, which was circulated in WhatsApp about story of John D Rockefeller. When we are talking about service, let me just tell you this, how it goes. Who was once the richest man in the world, first billionaire in the world. See, by age 25, he controlled one of the largest oil refineries in the US. By 31, he had become the world's largest oil refiner. By age 38, he commanded 90% of the oil refined in US. By 50, he was the richest man in the country. As a young man, every decision, attitude, and relationship was tailored to create his personal power and wealth. But at the age of 53, he became ill. His entire body became racked with pain and he lost all of his hair. In complete agony, the world's only billionaire could buy anything he wanted, but he could digest only soup and crackers. An associate wrote, he couldn't sleep, and would not even smile, and nothing in life meant anything to him. His personal, highly skilled physicians predicted he would die within a year. That year passed agonizingly slowly. As he approached death, he awoke one morning with the vague realization of not being able to take any of his wealth with him. He realized into the next world. The man who could control the business world suddenly realized he was not in control of his own life. He was left with a choice. He called his attorneys, accountants, and managers and announced that he wanted to channel his assets to hospitals, research, and charity work. John D. Rockefeller established his foundation. This new direction eventually led to the discovery of penicillin, cures for malaria, tuberculosis, and diphtheria. But perhaps the most amazing part of Rockefeller's story, now let me tell you, is that the moment he began to give back a portion of all he had earned, his body's chemistry was altered so significantly that he got better. It looked as if he would die at 53, but he lived to be 98. Rockefeller learned gratitude and gave back the vast majority of his wealth. Doing so made him whole. It is one thing to be healed. It is another to be made whole. You know, Rockefeller story reminds me of my own story. You know, when we started the mediation movement, at that time, the Chennai Center was being inaugurated. And President Abdul Kalam was going to inaugurate that center when I was told to be on Doordarshan from Delhi. And this commentator asked me, Mr. Singh, what do you do at the center? So I said, we have senior advocates and other lawyers who, some of them do pro bono work, who are now actually adorning the bench and became law officers. And they do pro bono work so that they can bring about settlements and peace in lives of people. You know, he queried, he says, he told me, he said, Mr. Singh, this is a facet of the lawyer's profession which the society doesn't know, that you guys can also do something good. See, this is your spiritual connection. When I'm telling you, you know, this is what was the, and it always keeps bringing me back that today what we want to do is give back to the system. The system has given us so much, and especially our own social setup. I mean, we talk of community mediation. Probably a lot of disputes which should be resolved at that level land up in court. Neighbors fighting, you know, boundary disputes, dog barking. Do they need to be actually decided by courts? But unfortunately, you see, there's a Chinese saying, they say that, you know, if you have a hammer in your hand, every dispute looks like a nail, hammer it. So that's how every dispute lands up in court. Now, when I talk of, you know, spirituality, whether it's playing golf, reciting poetry or shairi or mediating, for me, true spirituality is being one with oneself, which is the first step in William Urey's inner yes. Every mediation has the potential for a spiritual connection between the mediator and the parties. Every mediation gives us the opportunity to practice spiritual discipline of bringing peace into the room and peace in our hearts. This spiritual practice is an end in itself, as a way of working, a way of life, which we during our trainings refer to as life skills. Spirituality to me means playing golf, being in sync with myself and nature. It means mediating, where I find peace and solace, where two parties walk out of the door smiling. The human connection, you know, meets its zenith. In serving mankind, in serving the nation, where all citizens should live in peace and equanimity. That's my, you know, goal of mediation. It is the best form of meditation. Can we ask for any other better atmosphere? When we do a program which is hosted for the bar or a workshop conducted on mediation, a job well done can be elevating. That sense of euphoria is highly spiritual. You can feel the same, I'm sure, when you have played you know, a round of golf. When you give your 100% and return with a good card after a round of golf, or importantly, a mediation well conducted, a job well done can be very highly rewarding. John Hyder in his book, The Tao of Leadership writes, and I'm applying that leadership principle to mediation. As mediators, our work is our path. The wise mediator is like water. Water cleanses and refreshes without destruction and without judgment. Water freely and fearlessly goes deep beneath the surface of things. The dispute is only the tip of the iceberg. Water is fluid and responsive. That's how you have to be when you act as a mediator. The principles I take away from the perspective of the mediator. Now, I'm talking to you about the three topics that now you refer to. The main takeaways for me would be that the wise mediator models spiritual behavior and lives in harmony with the spiritual values. There is a way of knowing higher than reason. There is a self greater than egocentricity. There are natural consequences of every act. You must remember. The task is to shed light on these natural consequences and not to attack the behavior itself. By serving others and being generous, the mediator knows abundance. See, that is the mindset with it. Parties need to sit. The mediator needs to sit, that there is enough for everyone going. And that's why, you are able to transform the mediation process from a contest, which is, which applies to sports, win-lose, to a win-win situation. There's enough for everyone. And that's why we call it win-win. Everybody gets what they want. Their needs are filled. Mediators as healers enable parties to be transformed, experience a change of heart, be reconciled to one another, and feel healed and renewed. As healers, we use this power to serve God's children. Now, how do we prepare ourselves for this journey? Only when we have removed the harm in ourselves do we become truly useful to others. There is within each person a force that understands that all humanity is inextricably interdependent, and that to harm any part is to harm the whole. They say the highest form of learning is when you learn through interdependence. Because to me, if I want to do things for myself, that's being selfish. But to rise above, they always say synergy is 1 + 1 can be 11. And that's what interdependence talks about. Let's use in our mediation work the spiritual values and practices that underlie universal precepts of reciprocity, forgiveness, and reconciliation. These are 3 hallmarks which we need to work on. And religious concepts such as compassion, detachment, and genuineness. Once you are genuine, parties really open up. That's the basic purpose of how the trust is built. Now let's pray with Shanti Deva. Now that's my conclusion of the whole spiritual discourse so far as mediation, parties and process is concerned. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader to those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. Thank you, Vikram.
Very nice, JP. Really nice. But of course, you're going to still elaborate on certain points. But I think that Rockefeller example that you gave, interestingly, in the first session, there was Stefan. He was going to, of course, you said Rockefeller healed and got better. Here he was talking about how spirituality can actually change your genes. Genetic change can also happen. Right? That was very interesting.
Yes, that's what, this is just one example. See, church, the church believes in charity. I mean, the whole concept started like, where you have a charity ball, you do, this nobody's question. You just, and people I know, especially Salt Lake City, when I referred to, when we went to Utah, there's another sect which has come up, which is Latter-day Saints. after Christ, you have now a sect which talks of Latter-day Saints after Christ. And there we found huge buildings that have come up. And that's all donation by people. The kind of, see, at the end of the day, all of us realize, Vikram, that when the end comes, you're not going to take anything, any part of your wealth. And this is a story like which goes with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He went to a Shaukar and who treated him so well. And when he was leaving, he gave him a lot of ashrafis and said, I presented to him. So he said, look, I am a saint. What do I need these ashrafis for? He said, it will help you later, you take them. So he takes out a pin and gives it to him and says, look, when you come in the next life, bring this pin with you and give it to me. He says, but how will I bring this pin with me? When I go, I will not be able to carry anything from this world. He says, you can't carry a pin and you want me to carry these ashrafis to next life. So this is, service is I think the biggest form of today human kindness, or the world service that you can do is service to your neighbor, service to the mankind. And that's where he said, children of God. When you serve them, you serve God. Through them, you serve God. What can be the biggest form? And this another reminds me of another story. Let me tell you, Mr. Navjot Sidhu, he won the man of the match in Calcutta. That was long time back. And so he wanted to donate it to mothers of charity. So he went to see in Calcutta, he went to see Mother Teresa. He was guided to a room far off. So he says, I walked down to that room, and before I did reach the room, the whole atmosphere was full of stench. And he says, with great, I took up courage because I was told Mother Teresa is there. So he says, with great courage, I took and I went into that room. He says, I saw Mother Teresa cleaning the wounds of lepers. And when he walked in, so he was introduced that, he's come for this, that, and the purpose. So Mother Teresa said, very well, whatever you come for, thank you very much. You may donate to whatever. But would you spend some time with these people? Some bit of your time. And, he says in his writing, he says, look, I couldn't even stand there, leave alone, spend some time. The stench was so bad. And look at this person. This is the form of service that has no parallel, Vikram. And you got this opportunity today. As mediators, people have this opportunity. Actually, people who are ridden in, dispute, their whole self, they've actually involved their entire self into it. If you heal them, get them out of that, and they are able to live their lives, can there be a bigger service? So money cannot buy you this satisfaction. Money cannot. Therefore, sometimes when people ask me that, how do you manage so much of time? You have to be briefed and you have matters for the next day. I said, this is something which I took it upon myself. Nobody forced me to do it. And I do find time. You learn. That's what I say. There's this theory. If you have this much of work, the time expands to fill the work. And if you have this much of time and this much of work, the work expands to fill the time. So it's a question of how you manage your time.
I think that's a very important thing to say. Basically it's a calling. That's the aspect that the service aspect of it. And that's why it needs to be highlighted, because mediators are special people. I'm saying people with a mediator mindset. I'm not saying the fact that someone is saying is a mediator, but I'm saying the people themselves know whom they're talking about and whom they look at as those people. So that's really important, I think, to be able to highlight that, put that across. It's a very special kind of activity. I'm not even saying profession. I've been trying to say it's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
So
that's why we call them life skills. Whatever we talk about, whatever we do there, this is why they say that you need to be trained and you need to work on it. And, somebody needs to tell you. Therefore, learning in mediation never ends. So you may do as many workshops, you may read up, You need somebody to also guide you when you actually do mediations. This is a calling, as you said, which continues. You keep learning all your life. And so therefore, I have found myself that every day, I mean, even you learn from children. When you go for peer mediation, go to schools, you learn so much.
And the interesting part, JP, is that these children are there. They have all these values and skills and everything. Because Rosalia, she was, I think, I'll put it speaker number 19. As everyone has a number. So she was talking about her nephew right when he was young. Everyone knew he's special in terms of getting people together and that the whole concept of peacemaking as it was. So it's all there. I mean, when you say the skill, I'm saying the skill is there. That's why you will hear me a lot of times talking about training aspect of it, that they don't need training because training puts a skill, but these people have the skill. We just have to identify it and bring these people out. And again, I was telling her that, look, if society, community has to, family has to value him, because otherwise he'll go into a direction, lawyer, doctor, something else, and 20-30 years later he'll come back and say, this is what I really wanted to do. Why not put them in this path right from when they're young? And look, basic needs does come up. Everyone obviously needs that, so they move away from that path. But I think we have to create an atmosphere that they can continue on that path, and they don't need too much. I'm not saying that they're not materialistic, that sense content. So if we can create that kind of a situation that these people can follow this, it's a passion also. It's them. I mean, it's them as people. So I think it's something we need to create around that.
You see, Vikram, they need to be mentored. They need to be coached. See, unfortunately, a lot of us as seniors, I talk about this in our trainings. We are basically avoiders. And the reason why we are avoiders is because we have not learned those skills. When we talk of even training, you see, you learn driving. For 40 years, you've been driving. But do you think you improve your skills? You still remain the same. You may have been driving for 40 years because the moment you sit in the car, you get into autopilot. You are not improving your skills. And therefore you need the training or coaching or mentorship, as I'm referring to that. And therefore somebody needs to identify those areas for you, and that's the whole purpose when you start them young. Abroad, 16, the boys or the girl is sent out to fend for herself or himself. They learn to how they can be on their own. Unfortunately, our dependency patterns, are too much in our country. Joint family has its advantages, has its disadvantages. You keep depending every time. I give this example. In school, my teachers decided what was good for me. Went to college, my professors decided what was good for me. Started my earning, got into a job, my boss decided what was good for me. When did I get chance to decide for myself? So therefore, you need to put them on track and let them do things on their own. Don't become crutches, for the children. They need to be on their own.
And they know exactly what they know every. I mean, let me tell you, I've spoken to children, and when you listen to them, they know exactly how the process happens, how they do it. It's very nice to listen to them because nothing has been told to them. They haven't gone through any exercise, no workshop, nothing. But they actually, when they tell you, that's what the process is. Actually, so simple, but you need the right people to do it. But in terms of you saying, yeah,
that's why peer mediation has worked. Abroad, peer mediation, in schools has worked because they will never open up to a teacher or to a parent so much as they will open up to a peer group or the peer. So therefore, if you have peer mediation but children who are actually trained and told about the basics of peer mediation, and then they mediate between two children in school, a lot of disputes will disappear.
And once they can actually resolve a dispute within themselves, that whole, it's basically a totally different concept of looking at people and dealing with people. Once you can do that and you realize the power of that, and that's when they have to actually start. But you said, when you said types of negotiation, interestingly, like you said, I mean, everyone talks about interest-based negotiation or that whole process. But interestingly, Chuck, I don't know, speaker number I can't tell you, but Chuck spoke about value-based negotiation, which is what in that heart, soul, spirituality aspect. I like that, value-based negotiation. So that's obviously important.
That's, we actually are governed. When you said how you grow up, the atmosphere you grow up, we are governed by our value systems. We judge others and our own actions by those value systems. What is good or bad, that's what our values tell us. And these are these values which we imbibe from our childhood. And so they become so important. And they are the guiding force throughout our lives as we grow up. They change our perceptions. In fact, some of our value systems bring in biases, which we are seeing in the society. It's so sad, but then these are there. Our stereotypes, biases are based on those value systems, something which we learned as children. And it's unfortunate when you see delinquents on the street, they are being used. Their energies are being channelized in a different direction. It hurts. When they can be actually, they are the future of the country, and they should be actually doing something different.
That's the thing. That's why, JP, we need people like you will be creating that change somewhere. I mean, that you need to be out there doing that. I mean, you are doing that. I'm not saying you're not doing that, but I think we need good people out there being able to spend their time and just thinking about the good things, and then that whole the good things happen around them, and people come in, and I think they're attracted to that. So that's why it's important. And when you say that you went at some point of time went to Doordarshan and that part of it, please, you need to go out there. I was telling Mr. Pachu also that please, mass media, please use mass media. You have to that people like you have to be out there talking about all these good things.
Sometimes I feel you can't be too open. When you're too open, also sometimes people view it in a different way, and it can be an honest opinion, and that's what mediation has taught me, that there can be two opinions, and both are right. Why should I label the other opinion as wrong? Why should I be judgmental? That's person's perception, where he's coming from, his value systems. They say like 6 or 9. It depends on where you are standing. If you are standing this side, you see the issue as 6, and the other person sees as 9. Both are right. So why do we label? And unfortunately, I mean, today, whether it's everywhere today, we are labeling people, and there's hardly any understanding that's happening. And probably that's what is required today.
That's why I'm saying that, yeah.
We should understand from where the other person is coming from.
That's why this whole mediator mindset, because not being judgmental, being able to accept various views, all that, everyone doesn't have that. And the people who have it don't come out because, like I said, they're happy within themselves. They don't want to be, I mean, in some way identified. They don't even want to be identified. They're happy doing what they do. But we need to bring you out there. When media is used for all the negative things, why not those positive aspects and dispute resolution in a non-adversarial manner? Everyone will understand, but the right people have to be talking about it. So I think that's why we require.
But more importantly, I believe things will come out. But Vikram, let your work speak for itself. I mean, what I see you doing, I mean, this commitment I have not seen in many people. When you said to come on club, if you remember, and I realized, I mean, I find it very difficult to get out of a conversation once you're in it. And then you realize, I had so much of things else to do, and I'm now trapped here. And sometimes, that it can get prolonged. And you must do what you like. That's why I said what you're passionate about. Unless you're passionate about something, as you are doing, you made it a calling. I mean, you're not a lawyer in that sense that, you loved golf, you left golf, you're not playing golf anymore. So this has to come from within. And nobody can force you to sit on this chair and do what you're doing. It is all born inside. This passion has to come from within. And then only you can do things that, today, wherever you're reaching, and, people, this message, what you want to be able to reach people. This can only happen then. Otherwise,
yeah. No, I tell you, actually why the whole thing continues is because connecting to good people like you, just having these conversations, those conversations feel so good. So, I mean, you don't need anything else. And just the fact that these conversations are out there and people listen to them, and some get inspired, some connect with it, and I get those messages. I think it's that whole thing keeps going around that. So it's that ball which started rolling, and of course, good things happened around it. So that's why it's going on.
The saying goes, rolling stone gathers no moss. And that's where when I said it's better to wear out than to rust out. And you embarked on that journey.
No, it's been really nice. I think the journey has been really nice, and for all over the world. I mean, when you connect with people, and there is a certain, and that's where heart, soul, spirituality aspect also comes in. There's such basic levels that once you connect at, I mean, there is no concept, no borders, no nationalities, no languages. When you connect from person to person kind of thing, nothing else matters. So just to be able to connect to that,
the human connection, what I told you,
exactly.
That's the only answer. I mean, even as mediators, you get, as I said again, typecast. But we started using the word mediation family. Slowly, we realize that people coalesce, and get together, and you go out anywhere today, and you say you're a mediator or you've been mediating. There's an immediate attachment. The people get attracted to each other. So it is oneness of human beings, yes, but then you need some labels. There are some, as I told you, they can be good, there can be bad. It has both sides.
That's why JP, that golfer label is also good label, but golfers also connect with each other. That also, there is something to it. I'm telling you, according to me, everyone can't play golf because it takes there is something special there to be able to manage that ball every day, every shot. So
one good shot, Vikram, one good shot brings you back.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what I say. And then look at the values that golf teaches you.
Yes.
A gentleman's game. You don't let people wait. You don't disturb a person who's putting. You don't cross the path. I mean, you let the person go first. See the value system there. That's why they say, give me a man on the golf course for 18 holes and I'll tell you his character.
Exactly. That's why, I mean, that's why I keep talking about it. But interestingly, let me put down to you one thing that I put on there's a tweet that I pinned on my Twitter, and this I definitely like to. I've connected this to mediation. So when you're reading golf, read mediation also. It changed it to mediation.
Yes, and you're quoting the man who was actually the greatest player on earth.
But would you say the same thing for mediation? I say that.
Yes. It's a connection. As you said, it's a.
Hi, Bernie.
Hey, did I interrupt something?
No. JP is here. JP's session was going on. Wonderful session. But you are into with this spirituality. We see now there is light behind you.
About that.
Exactly.
Yeah, the nature of this room is when it's
that's the halo.
Yes, exactly.
It's not to be backlit. Let me try something else here. Although I like the metaphor.
No, that was very interesting. Exactly. It fit. So, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be thanking JP. So JP, thank you very much, because I'll have to just convert this and the next to that. So I'll just thank you for that. JP, it was really nice talking to you. And
same here, Vikram. Always love to talk to you always.
It's really nice.
Let's meet also on the golf course. Take the mediation forward.
absolutely. Just whenever you want.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank